You have to be patient with yourself as you do this. It took me years to reprogram old programming that was not supportive of my life. So you have to be patient with yourself. But I promise you, this does work. This is not something that I came up with. This is actually physiology, biology, and it's actually something that is physically happening in your brain. This is not a raw kind of a thing. That's why I originally opened the top of this conversation with every single thought is an actual electrical charge. It's actually going from one part of your brain to another part of your brain, and this is real. Every thought that you have is a surge of electricity that travels from one part of your brain to another part of your brain, and it travels along a pathway. Now, when you repeat these thoughts, or if these thoughts are repeated around you, which is also a very important note, and I will put a note on that later. But if you repeat these thoughts, or if these thoughts are repeated around you, then even more energy passes along this pathway. And what happens is that because your brain wants the energy to travel easier, the pathway just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so more and more energy is able to travel along this pathway. Now, when you repeat these thoughts out loud, if you said it yourself and if you speak it aloud, then even more energy passes along this pathway. And it becomes ultimately a belief system, especially if you say it like with a lot of emotion and if you put a lot of energy behind it when you're speaking. And a lot of times when we say a lot of things about ourselves or a lot about our lives, we're very emotional about it. And it's like, oh my God, this happens to me, or this is just the way that things are, and so on and so forth. And so you just constantly repeat it, and there's so much energy just passing along that same pathway. And so ultimately it becomes a philosophy, it becomes a belief system upon which we view our life. Now, the way that we were programmed originally was not by ourselves. We didn't go ahead and program these thoughts into our own brain. Our thoughts were programmed in our brain by our parents and by the people that were around us even before we were able to speak, right? So you could actually take in information, you could process language as a child without being able to exactly articulate all of those things yourself in the same manner that you heard them. But just because you can't say it doesn't mean that you're not taking the information. It doesn't mean that your brain isn't processing that knowledge and that information. And so as it's repeated around you, then it makes an imprint and an impression upon your brain and upon your mind. And it becomes something that sits there until you're able to articulate and believe or say your own thoughts. Now, you hear kids a lot of times saying some things that you're like, wow, where did this kid hear that? Like, where did that even come from? Like, how does a 7-year-old know something like that to say? And it's not because they knew it, they heard it from somebody. And they probably heard it from their parents or their friends' parents or their teachers or some kind of a cultural influencer, whatever that may be. And then now the kid's saying it. And now that energy is passing along that pathway. And then as they repeat it through their adolescence, and then they repeat it through their teenage years, and then some consequences probably happen from those original thoughts. And now those are even further affirmations upon those thoughts, upon those beliefs. Then they go into their actual adult life, believing certain things about themselves, believing certain things about the world. And a lot of times, unfortunately, those things are not constructive and they're not supportive of building a good and happy lifestyle. Now, there's good news to this. Just because we said all this doesn't mean it's all doom and gloom, right? There's hope. The same way that you were originally programmed, you can reprogram your own brain. A lot of times people call it brainwashing and oh my God, it's all these things. And it's like, well, whatever you want to call it, sometimes you need to wash your brain because your brain is like dirty and it's filled with all this junk and all the crap that was passed to you from other people throughout your life. So I call it reprogramming, and it's called Neurolinguistic Programming, and it's something that I think everybody should study, and it's something that you should learn because original belief systems that I had in my life were not supportive of a happy life and a successful life. And I think that I've been able to successfully enough reprogram my brain to change and build something for myself in a little bit, and then at the same time I'm continuing to do it so that I can go ahead and build an even better life. And I think as you teach somebody this information, then it also transfers and it re-ingrains in your mind even more. So if I say it and I'm teaching it to you, then I'm also helping myself reprogram my own beliefs and my own thoughts. So here's how you can do it for yourself. Here's how you can reprogram your own brain and your own thoughts. Now, this is a little bit tricky because everybody's different and everybody's psychology is very sophisticated and complex. It's not something that's just easily a blanket statement, one size fits all kind of a thing. But the one common denominator is that if you say something, then that energy is going to pass along that pathway. Meaning what? If your thought is, I am this way, and that's like a belief system that you have, and it's something that you keep saying, that I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, and it's not necessarily a supportive belief, and you just constantly say it, and you catch yourself saying it, and you're like, man, I wish I wasn't this way, right? Or I wish I could da 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 da. So if that's something that you want to change, if there's something about you that you're like, damn, I wish I could just change that about myself. Remember standards when we were in like middle school? They would give us standards. It's like, I will not da 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 da. I would, and then you just had to write it 20 times or 50 times. They kind of had the right idea, but the tactic was a little bit wrong. And it's more so not I will not, it's I will or I am. And I like the phrase I am. Anything that starts with I am is a lot more doable for the psychology and for the brain than anything else. Because if you say I will have or I have or anything else that's like kind of physical and external, then it's a little bit tougher to accomplish this. But if you say I am this, so if there's something that you're like, I'm this way and I don't want to be this way anymore, then what is the opposite of this thing? So what would be the actual opposite thing? So it's like, I am negative, let's say. I am negative. And so, but I want to be positive, right? But you know that you're negative and you just view your actions and you view your life and you say all these and you're like, all right, it's negative. My results and my experience is negative. But your thought, the one that you want to program in your mind is I am positive and I can do this and I am positive and I am positive. Even though you don't necessarily believe it right now, and this voice in your brain, that little voice that just sits there and like you hear it talking and it's constantly chattering and jabbering in your brain the entire day, that voice will say, well, no, you're not positive, you're negative. What are you talking about? You're crazy. But you're like, no, I'm positive. I'm positive, I'm positive. The voice is like, no, you're not. It's like, no, I'm positive, I'm positive, I'm positive, I'm positive. This is gonna take time, by the way. So just so you know, it's like, this is not something that it happens instantly or it happens overnight. You're trying to reverse programming that has taken years to go into your brain and into your life. So it's not something that happens right away. And you need to be aware of this and be patient with yourself as you're going through this, because you're going to repeat previous cycles, you're going to repeat previous patterns. But that doesn't mean that you should condemn yourself, that you should indict yourself, or you should go ahead and judge yourself in any way and say that it's over, there's no hope for me. You have to be patient with yourself as you do this. It took me years to reprogram old programming that was not supportive of my life. So you have to be patient with yourself. But I promise you, this does work. This is not something that I came up with. This is actually physiology, biology, and it's actually something that is physically happening in your brain. This is not a raw kind of a thing. That's why I originally opened the top of this conversation with every single thought is an actual electrical charge. It's actually going from one part of your brain to another part of your brain, and this is real. So you can go ahead and study it for yourself. If you don't believe me, it's called Neurolinguistic Programming, and it's something that I think everybody should study, and I think it's something that should be taught to every single person. Now, if you found value in this, please go ahead and share it with your friends, tag people in this video, subscribe and follow if you're not already, and let me know if you found any kind of value from it. Let me know if it connects to you in your life. If you have any stories that potentially you can think out there, like, wow, I actually did notice that I had this kind of belief system where like I was repeating these thoughts or certain things about myself. So anything like that, I actually would love to hear, and I would love to hear your feedback. And if you have any questions or if you need to clarify anything, then let me know as well, and I would love to respond to that as well. I hope you're having a great day, and I hope whatever you're doing is fun and exciting, and I'll talk to you soon.